The air was thick with humidity as I pulled my boat up to the dock at the edge of the Florida Everglades. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow across the murky waters. I had spent the last 5 years guiding tourists through the winding channels and lush vegetation of this sprawling, mysterious swamp. It was a job that combined my love for nature with a passion for storytelling. But there was something about this evening that felt different, something that sent an unsettling chill down my spine. As I tied my boat to the post, I noticed an unfamiliar figure standing at the edge of the dock. She was an older woman, her skin weathered and wrinkled from years spent in the sun. Her eyes were piercing, a shade of deep blue that seemed almost unnatural against her dark complexion. She wore a flowing white dress that billowed in the breeze, and as I approached, she held out her hand, palm open. "You're the tour guide, aren't you?" she asked, her voice low and melodic. "Yeah, that's me," I replied, taken aback by her sudden appearance. "Can I help you?" "I have a warning for you," she said, her gaze unwavering. "There are rules you must follow if you want to keep your passengers safe. Strange rules." I chuckled nervously. "Strange rules? Like what?" She leaned closer, lowering her voice as if afraid someone might overhear. "Never go out alone after dark. If you must, always bring a light. And never, under any circumstances, stray from the path. The swamp holds secrets, and not all of them are friendly." My laughter died in my throat. "I appreciate the concern, but I've been out here countless times. I know these waters like the back of my hand." The woman smiled faintly, but there was a sadness in her expression. "It's not about what you know, it's about what you don't know. The swamp is alive, and it remembers." I felt a shiver race down my spine as she turned and walked away, disappearing into the dense foliage like a ghost. I brushed off the encounter, attributing it to the overactive imagination of someone who had spent too long in the Everglades. But deep down, her words lingered, echoing in my mind as I prepared for the evening's tour. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I welcomed my group aboard the boat. A mix of tourists eager to explore the wilds of the Everglades. There were families, couples, and a few adventurous souls, all excited for a glimpse of the unique wildlife and breathtaking scenery. I started the engine, the hum of the boat cutting through the evening stillness. "Welcome to the Florida Everglades," I announced, my voice filled with enthusiasm. "Tonight, we'll navigate through the winding waterways and witness some of the most incredible sights nature has to offer." The boat glided smoothly over the water, the ripples reflecting the fiery colors of the sunset. I pointed out the alligators basking in the fading light and the herons stalking the shallows, their sharp silhouettes outlined against the golden sky. The laughter and chatter of my passengers filled the air, a pleasant distraction from the woman's eerie warning. But as the darkness settled in, an unsettling feeling crept over me. The swamp seemed to come alive at night, its sounds amplified in the stillness. The croaking of frogs echoed through the trees, and the rustling of leaves hinted at unseen creatures moving in the shadows. "Is it always this loud at night?" one of the tourists asked, peering over the edge of the boat. I chuckled, trying to mask my unease. "Oh, you'll get used to it. The Everglades has its own rhythm." As we ventured deeper into the swamp, the moon rose high above us, casting an eerie glow on the water's surface. I felt a strange urge to heed the woman's warnings, to stay close to the main channels and avoid the tangled mangroves. But curiosity pushed me forward. I had never been one to shy away from adventure. "Let's take a little detour," I suggested, steering the boat toward a narrow passage that cut through the trees. The darkness seemed to thicken around us, and the laughter of my passengers faded into nervous whispers. "Are you sure this is safe?" another tourist asked, glancing nervously at the encroaching shadows. I waved away their concerns. "Don't worry, this is where the magic happens." As I maneuvered the boat through the tight corridor, the trees closed in around us, their branches twisting like skeletal fingers reaching out for something lost. A sense of foreboding settled over me, but I shook it off, determined to provide an unforgettable experience. Just as we turned a sharp corner, the engine sputtered and died. The silence that followed felt heavy. The boat drifted to a halt, the still water reflecting the dark silhouettes of the trees looming above us. What just happened?" a young woman asked, her voice tinged with anxiety. "I'm sure it's just a minor issue," I replied, forcing a calmness I didn't feel. I fiddled with the ignition, but the engine refused to cooperate. "Let me see if I can get it started again." As I leaned over the side of the boat, trying to get a glimpse of the motor, a chill swept through the air. The temperature dropped suddenly, and I could see my breath clouding in front of me. The atmosphere shifted. The vibrant sounds of the swamp faded into an eerie silence. "What is that?" one of the men whispered, pointing toward the shore. I turned to see a faint glow emanating from the tree line. It pulsed like a heartbeat, a soft blue light that danced and flickered, drawing my gaze. The glow seemed to beckon us closer, a mesmerizing lure that sent shivers racing down my spine. "Stay here," I said, more to myself than to my passengers, as I cautiously approached the edge of the boat. The light flickered again, and I felt a strange pull, as if it was searching for something buried deep within me. Suddenly, I heard a voice, a whisper, soft and haunting, carried on the breeze. "Follow me." I jerked back, heart racing. The voice was unmistakable, feminine yet ethereal, as if it belonged to the very essence of the swamp. I looked around at my passengers, their faces pale and filled with confusion. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Hear what?" a tourist replied, shaking her head in disbelief. "Nothing, never mind," I stammered, shaking off the unsettling sensation. I returned to the engine, fighting to regain my focus, but the glowing light remained, its allure an intoxicating promise of discovery and danger. I finally managed to restart the engine, the familiar hum providing a comforting sense of normalcy. But as we pulled away from the spot, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had left something behind, something important. We continued our journey, but the atmosphere had changed. The sense of unease hung heavy in the air, palpable and suffocating. My passengers whispered among themselves, casting nervous glances at the encroaching darkness. I decided it was time to lighten the mood. "Alright, folks, who's ready for some stories?" I announced, trying to inject excitement back into the group. The Everglades has a rich history filled with legends and tales of the supernatural. Let me tell you about the lost souls of the swamp. As I began to weave my narrative, recounting tales of lost explorers and ghostly apparitions, I felt a prickling sensation on the back of my neck. It was as if someone was watching us, lurking just beyond the shadows. I glanced around, but the trees stood still, their gnarled branches a fortress against prying eyes. Legend has it that those who venture too far into the swamp after dark may encounter the spirits of those who were lost. I continued, my voice steady despite the unease creeping into my gut. They say the swamp has a way of claiming souls, and once you're taken, you can never return. I paused for effect, letting the tension build as the tourists exchanged wary glances. "There are strange rules to follow if you want to keep your soul intact," I added, recalling the woman's warning. "Never stray from the path, always travel in groups, and whatever you do, don't ignore the signs." One of the tourists, a young man with a skeptical expression, scoffed. "Come on, man. You really expect us to believe that? It's just a story." "Is it?" I countered, my tone shifting. "You'd be surprised how many have gone missing in these waters. The swamp is unpredictable, and it has a way of keeping its secrets." The atmosphere grew tense, and a sudden rustle in the underbrush made everyone jump. I turned to see a shadow darting between the trees, a flicker of movement that sent my heart racing. My instincts screamed at me to move, to get back to the open waters where the light could reach us. "Alright, let's head back," I said, feeling an urgency that I couldn't explain. The engine roared to life, and I steered the boat back toward the main channel, but the feeling of being watched lingered, an unseen presence trailing us through the darkness. As we navigated back, the mood among my passengers shifted. The playful chatter had died down, replaced by an uncomfortable silence. I could see the fear etched on their faces, reflected in the moonlit waters. The stories I told had struck a chord, and I wondered if I had crossed a line in my attempts to entertain. Just as we reached the main channel, a scream pierced the night, sending a shockwave of terror through the boat. I slammed on the brakes, spinning around to find one of the tourists, a woman in her 30s, gone. "Where did she go?" I shouted, panic rising in my chest. The remaining passengers looked around frantically, their faces pale with fear. "She was just here," one of them exclaimed, his voice trembling. "She was right next to me." I scanned the water, my heart pounding in my chest. The boat floated silently, the only sound being the gentle lapping of water against the hull. The moonlight illuminated the area, but there was no sign of her. "Stay here," I commanded, though my voice wavered. I grabbed a flashlight and shone it into the trees, hoping to catch a glimpse of her. "Hello, can you hear me?" I called, but there was no answer, only the eerie stillness of the swamp. I felt the weight of the rules pressing down on me. The woman's warnings echoed in my mind. Never go out alone after dark. Always bring a light. Never stray from the path. "Maybe she fell overboard," one of the tourists suggested, his voice shaky. "Then we need to find her," I replied, my mind racing. The fear that had gripped my passengers was now clawing at my insides. "I'll check along the shoreline. Stay close and keep your eyes open." With that, I maneuvered the boat toward the nearest bank, the flashlight cutting through the darkness like a knife. I searched the ground, the soft mud squelching beneath my feet as I called out for her again and again. "Come on, this isn't funny," I yelled, my voice hoarse with desperation. But the only response was the mocking croak of a distant frog, echoing through the trees. Panic settled in as the minutes dragged on, and I felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on me. I was supposed to protect them, to guide them through this wild and unpredictable landscape, and now one of them was missing. Time passed like molasses as I scoured the shoreline, every shadow stretching and shifting in the moonlight. I called her name repeatedly, but the swamp swallowed my words, leaving only an oppressive silence in their wake. Where could she have gone? I muttered to myself, dread coiling tightly in my gut. The woman's warning resurfaced, each rule a haunting reminder of the dangers lurking in the darkness. I returned to the boat, my heart heavy with hopelessness. The remaining tourists were huddled together, their faces pale with fear. They looked at me, and I could see the questions in their eyes. What now? What do we do? "We need to call for help," I said, but as I reached for my radio, a sudden realization hit me. I hadn't seen any cell service since we ventured into the swamp, and the radio would be useless in this desolate area. "We should head back to the dock," one of the men suggested, his voice trembling. "We need to get out of here." I nodded, knowing he was right, but I couldn't shake the feeling of dread settling over me. As I turned the boat around, I caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye, a flash of white darting through the trees. "Did you see that?" I asked, my heart racing. "What?" another tourist replied, eyes wide. "I thought I saw her," I called, squinting into the darkness. "We have to check it out." "No," someone shouted, panic lacing their voice. "We need to get back." But something inside me urged me to follow, to see if there was a chance, any chance, of finding her alive. I steered the boat toward the shoreline, my heart pounding in my chest. The flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating the trees and the tangled underbrush. I could feel the air growing colder, the oppressive weight of the swamp closing in around us. "Stay here," I commanded as I climbed out of the boat, leaving the engine running in case we needed to make a quick escape. I ventured into the trees, my pulse racing as I called out her name again, the sound echoing in the silence. I could feel the eyes of my passengers on my back, the tension thickening the air. The shadows danced around me, and with each step I took, I felt the weight of the swamp pressing down, as if it were trying to pull me under. As I moved deeper into the underbrush, the world around me seemed to shift. The trees loomed taller, their gnarled branches twisted into grotesque shapes. I could hear the distant sounds of the swamp, but they felt muted, as if I were in a bubble, separated from reality. "Where are you?" I called, my voice cracking. "Please, if you can hear me, respond." The silence that followed was deafening. I turned, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, illuminating patches of vibrant moss and tangled roots. The air was thick with humidity, and the scent of damp earth clung to me like a shroud. Then I saw it again, the flicker of that familiar blue light, pulsing softly between the trees. My heart raced, a mixture of fear and curiosity pushing me forward. What if it led me to her? I followed the light, each step taking me further from the safety of the boat and deeper into the heart of the swamp. The light danced just out of reach, and I felt an irresistible pull as if it was guiding me toward something hidden. "Wait," I shouted, trying to maintain my sense of direction. "I'm coming." But the light flickered and vanished, leaving me standing in a small clearing, surrounded by towering cypress trees. The air felt charged, electric, and a sense of foreboding washed over me. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a woman, her white dress flowing around her like mist. My breath caught in my throat. "Is it you?" I whispered, hope surging through me. But as she stepped closer, I realized it wasn't the woman from my group. Her eyes were wide and hollow, and her expression was one of eternal sorrow. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice echoing like a distant memory. "Where is she? Where's my passenger?" I demanded, desperation creeping into my voice. The ghostly figure pointed toward the trees, her gesture a warning. "Turn back before it's too late." "What do you mean?" I asked, taking a step closer, but she faded into the shadows, leaving only a whisper in the air. "The swamp remembers." I felt my heart race as panic surged through me. What had I done? I turned on my heel, scrambling back toward the path, the weight of dread heavy on my chest. I stumbled through the underbrush, branches clawing at my skin as I fought to find my way back. The shadows closed in around me, the oppressive darkness swallowing me whole. I could feel something lurking just beyond my vision, an unseen presence that sent chills racing down my spine. Finally, I broke through the trees and emerged back at the boat, gasping for breath. My passengers were huddled together, their faces pale and filled with fear. "Where were you?" one of them demanded, his voice shaking. I thought I saw her," I stammered, my heart racing, but it was just something else. "We need to go," another tourist said, her voice trembling. "This isn't right. We should never have come out here." I nodded, feeling the weight of their fear settle over me like a blanket. The stories I had told suddenly felt too real, the rules I had dismissed too significant to ignore. As I started the engine, I could feel the eyes of the swamp upon us, an audience witnessing our retreat. The boat roared to life, and I steered it back toward the main channel, the trees receding into the darkness behind us. But just as we rounded a bend, I caught sight of something in the water, a flash of white beneath the surface. My heart stopped and I leaned closer, my breath hitching in my throat. "Is that?" I began, but the words caught in my throat. My passengers leaned over the side, their faces a mix of curiosity and fear. "What is it?" someone whispered. I couldn't look away as the white form emerged from the water, a dress, stained and tattered, drifting like a specter in the moonlight. It was then that I understood the true horror of the swamp. No, I gasped, my hands shaking as I steered the boat closer. "This can't be happening." The water rippled around the form, and I could see the outline of a woman's body, still and lifeless. A scream erupted from the group, the sound shattering the silence of the night. "We have to go, now," I shouted, panic surging through me as I revved the engine, forcing the boat into motion. We sped through the dark waters, the engine roaring in the stillness. The swamp seemed to come alive around us, the trees closing in like watchful sentinels. I could feel the weight of the lost souls pressing down, a haunting reminder of the danger we faced. Was that her?" one of the tourists cried, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know," I shouted, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "But we need to get out of here." The boat lurched over the waves, the darkness pressing in on us. I could see the lights of the dock flickering in the distance, a beacon of safety that felt impossibly far away. But as we moved closer, something stirred in the water, a disturbance that sent ripples across the surface. "What is that?" someone shouted, pointing to the water. I squinted, trying to see through the darkness. A shadow rose from the depths, its form shifting and twisting like smoke. It hovered just beneath the surface, its movements erratic and unpredictable. "Don't look," I yelled, heart racing as I fought to keep my focus on the path ahead. "Just hold on." But it was too late. The water erupted around us, splashing over the sides of the boat. The shadows surged up, tendrils of darkness reaching for us, grasping at the air like desperate hands. "Get back," I screamed, slamming the throttle forward as the boat shot forward, the engine screaming in protest. We barreled through the water, the darkness closing in behind us. I could feel the weight of the swamp pressing against us, the rules that had once seemed silly now a lifeline I clung to, desperately. "Stay together," I yelled, my voice hoarse. "Never stray from the path." As we neared the dock, I felt a surge of hope. The lights grew brighter, the laughter and chatter of other tourists breaking the oppressive silence. But just as we reached the dock, I glanced back, and my heart dropped. The shadow had broken free, surging toward us with a ferocity that stole the breath from my lungs. It twisted and writhed, a mass of darkness that seemed to be alive, hungry for something it had lost. "Go, get out," I shouted, leaping onto the dock and helping my passengers disembark, fear clawing at my chest. We scrambled to safety, hearts racing as we turned to watch the water. The shadow twisted beneath the surface, the white dress rising and falling like a specter of the lost. The air grew cold, and I could hear the whisper of the swamp, a haunting melody that echoed in my mind. The swamp remembers. We stood on the dock, breathless and shaken, staring into the dark waters that had nearly claimed us. The moonlight cast an eerie glow over the scene, illuminating the jagged edges of the dock and the encroaching shadows of the trees. My heart pounded in my chest, a relentless reminder of the danger we had just escaped. What just happened?" One of the tourists stammered, his eyes wide with fear. "I don't know," I replied, my voice hoarse, "but we have to report this. Someone is missing, and we need to call for help." The group huddled together, murmuring among themselves. I could see the fear etched into their faces, the realization that we had brushed against something dark and ancient in the swamp. I pulled out my phone, but as I did, the sinking feeling in my stomach returned. No service, no signal. The swamp had consumed our connection to the outside world, leaving us stranded in a realm of shadows. "Let's go to the ranger station," I said, my voice steady despite the panic rising in my chest. "Maybe they have a way to call for help." We moved quickly, the darkness closing in around us as we made our way through the tangled underbrush. Each rustle of leaves sent a jolt of fear through my body, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone. The shadows shifted and danced, whispering secrets I could not understand. As we approached the ranger station, the oppressive atmosphere of the swamp seemed to lift slightly. The familiar sight of the small wooden building brought a sense of relief, but it was short-lived. We burst through the door, breathless and frantic. The ranger, a grizzled man with a weathered face, looked up in surprise. "What happened out there?" he asked, his expression shifting from curiosity to concern as he took in our fearful faces. "There was an accident," I explained, my voice trembling. "One of our passengers is missing. We think she..." But before I could finish, the ranger's eyes widened in recognition. "You need to leave, now." "What? Why?" I asked, bewildered. "Because the swamp is angry," he said, his voice low and urgent. "You've stirred something that shouldn't be disturbed. The rules are there for a reason." I felt a cold chill wash over me as his words settled in. The woman's warnings echoed in my mind, a haunting reminder of the danger we had faced. "Get out while you can," he urged, "before it's too late." We left the ranger station in a haze of confusion and fear, the weight of the swamp pressing down on us once more. The darkness seemed to thicken, wrapping around us like a shroud. "Where do we go?" one of the tourists asked, her voice trembling. "We need to find a way to get back to civilization," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "We can't stay here." As we made our way back toward the dock, the atmosphere shifted, a palpable tension filling the air. The swamp felt alive, the shadows shifting and swirling around us as if they were trying to keep us from escaping. I glanced over my shoulder, the oppressive darkness gnawing at my resolve. "Stay close," I instructed, gripping the flashlight tightly. "We need to stick together." But as we moved deeper into the underbrush, the whispers returned, a haunting melody that echoed through the trees. "Follow me, follow me." "Did you hear that?" someone asked, panic rising in their voice. "Stay focused," I snapped, trying to push the fear aside. "We can't get lost in the dark." But the whispers grew louder, wrapping around us like tendrils of smoke. The shadows danced and twisted, a malevolent force that seemed to close in around us. "Turn back," the whispers urged, their tone insistent. "You don't belong here." I shook my head, forcing myself to concentrate on the path ahead. We needed to find the boat, our only way out of this nightmare. Suddenly, I stumbled upon a clearing, and my breath caught in my throat. There, in the center of the clearing, stood the white dress, floating in midair as if suspended by an unseen force. "What is that?" someone gasped, stepping back in fear. "Don't look," I shouted, feeling the panic rising in my chest. "We have to keep moving." But as I turned to leave, the figure shifted, revealing a face twisted in anguish. It was the woman from our group, her eyes wide and pleading. "Help me," she whispered, her voice a ghostly echo. "No," I shouted, feeling a surge of terror. "We can't help you." But the figure reached out, a desperate gesture that sent a chill racing through me. I could feel the weight of the swamp pressing down, an oppressive force that threatened to pull us under. "Run," I yelled, turning to sprint back toward the path. The shadows writhed around us, the whispers growing louder as we fled. We raced through the underbrush, hearts pounding in our chests as the whispers grew louder, more insistent. "You can't escape," they taunted, a chorus of voices echoing in the darkness. I could feel the air growing colder, the oppressive weight of the swamp pressing down on us. I glanced back, and my blood ran cold as I saw the shadows closing in, a mass of darkness that seemed to be alive. "Keep going," I shouted, desperation fueling my words. "We have to reach the dock." The trees loomed around us, their twisted branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The path seemed to twist and turn, leading us deeper into the heart of the swamp. I fought to keep my bearings, my mind racing with the need to find a way out. Suddenly, the ground beneath my feet gave way, and I stumbled, falling to my knees in the mud. My passengers halted, fear etched on their faces as they turned to help me. "Come on, we have to go," one of them urged, reaching for my arm. But as he pulled me up, I could feel the shadows closing in around us, a suffocating darkness that threatened to swallow us whole. I struggled to regain my footing, the weight of the swamp pressing down on me. "We have to keep moving," I shouted, forcing myself to push forward. But as we stumbled through the underbrush, I could feel the presence behind us, the shadows shifting and twisting like a living entity. "You can't escape," they whispered, their voices echoing in my mind. Suddenly, the clearing opened up before us, revealing the dock illuminated by moonlight. "There," I yelled, my heart racing as we rushed toward safety. But just as we reached the edge of the dock, the shadows surged forward, a mass of darkness that erupted from the trees. "No," I screamed, pushing my passengers onto the dock as I turned to face the encroaching shadows. "Get to the boat," I yelled, my heart pounding as I stood my ground, determined to protect them at any cost. The shadows twisted around me, their whispers growing louder, more insistent. "You shouldn't have come here," they hissed, a chorus of voices that filled the air. "Leave us alone," I shouted, raising my flashlight to pierce the darkness. But the light flickered, the shadows consuming it in an instant. In that moment of desperation, I felt a surge of defiance rise within me. "You may have claimed others," I yelled into the darkness, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me, "but I will not be your next victim." The shadows hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty rippling through their form. I took a step forward, my heart racing as I held my ground. "You will not take me or my passengers. We are leaving this place." With those words, I turned and sprinted toward the boat, my heart pounding in my chest. The shadows surged after me, their whispers rising to a crescendo. "You can't escape. You can't escape." I leaped into the boat, my passengers already huddled together, fear written on their faces. "Go, start the engine," I shouted, urgency lacing my voice. The boat roared to life, the sound slicing through the darkness like a beacon of hope. I seized the throttle, feeling the power of the engine surge beneath me. "Hold on," I yelled, steering the boat into the dark waters. As we tore away from the dock, the shadows surged behind us, reaching out with dark tendrils that clawed at the air. "You can't leave. You can't leave," they hissed, their voices echoing in my mind. But I refused to look back, focusing on the path ahead. The moonlight illuminated the water, guiding us toward safety. I could feel the weight of the swamp lifting, the oppressive darkness giving way to the promise of escape. As we sped through the waters, the whispers faded into the distance, the shadows retreating back into the depths of the swamp. My heart raced, a mixture of relief and lingering fear coursing through me. We had escaped, but at what cost? We emerged from the swamp, the lights of civilization sparkling in the distance like stars against the darkness. My heart raced as we approached the dock, relief flooding through me. We had made it. but as I turned to look at my passengers, I saw the fear still etched on their faces. Is she really gone? One of them asked, his voice trembling. I don't know, I replied, my heart heavy with the weight of our ordeal. But we need to report this. Someone has to know what happened out there. We pulled the boat up to the dock, the familiar sights and sounds of the harbor a welcome relief. But as we disembarked, a chill ran down my spine, a lingering sense of dread settling in my gut. I led my passengers toward the ranger station, the air thick with tension. We entered the building and the ranger looked up, concern etched on his face. What happened? He asked, his voice low and serious. We lost someone in the swamp, I said, my voice shaking. We need help. He nodded, his expression grave. We need to get a search team out there. We can't leave anyone behind. As he moved to grab his radio, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. We had survived, but the weight of what we had faced lingered in the air, a haunting reminder of the dangers that lay hidden in the darkness. Days passed, and the search team ventured into the swamp, but they returned empty-handed. The woman who had disappeared seemed to have vanished into thin air, leaving only echoes of her presence behind. The town buzzed with rumors, whispers of the dangers that lurked in the shadows of the swamp. I tried to put it all behind me, to return to the life I had known before, but the memories haunted my dreams, a constant reminder of what I had encountered. I continued to give tours, but I found it harder to shake the feeling that I was being watched. The swamp felt alive, a breathing entity that held its secrets close. Every time I took a group out on the water, I could feel the weight of those lost souls surrounding us, their whispers echoing in the breeze. I felt the weight of the rules that had been etched in my mind, a mantra that kept me grounded. Never go out alone after dark. Always bring a light, never stray from the path. The stories I had told, once mere entertainment, now felt like a warning, a dark legacy passed down through generations. I became a guardian of those rules, determined to keep others safe from the horrors I had faced. But in the quiet moments, when the sun dipped below the horizon and the darkness crept in, I could still hear the whispers of the swamp. You can't escape, they called, a haunting reminder of the night we had come too close to the edge of the unknown. Months later, as I prepared for a new group of tourists, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled over me. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the water, and the air felt thick with anticipation. Are you ready for your tour? I asked, forcing a smile as the group climbed aboard. The laughter and chatter of the tourists filled the air, but beneath the surface, I could sense a tension that mirrored my own. I glanced at the dark expanse of the swamp, a place that had once felt familiar but now loomed like a predator waiting to strike. As we ventured deeper into the heart of the swamp, I shared the stories that had captivated audiences for years. But as I spoke, I felt a heaviness in the air, a presence that made the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. Is it true, one of the tourists asked, her voice trembling slightly, about the woman who went missing? I paused, my heart racing as I met her gaze. Yes, I replied, my voice steady. But the swamp is just a place. It's the stories and the fears that can bring it to life. But as the sun sank lower, painting the sky with shades of crimson and gold, I felt the darkness creeping in. The shadows deepened and the air grew cold. Suddenly, a flicker of white caught my eye, a flash of movement between the trees. My heart raced, and I forced myself to look away, focusing on the group. Let's head back, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but as I turned the boat, I could feel the weight of the swamp bearing down on us. The whispers returned, swirling around us like a tempest. You shouldn't have come here, they taunted, a chorus of voices echoing in my mind. I felt a surge of defiance rise within me. We're leaving, I shouted, revving the engine as we raced back toward the dock. But as we sped through the dark waters, I glanced back one last time. The shadows surged behind us, a mass of darkness that twisted and writhed in the moonlight. I felt a chill run down my spine, a reminder of the darkness that lay just beyond the edges of our perception. As we reached the dock, I leaped from the boat, urgency propelling me forward. The air felt thick with tension, and I could hear the whispers growing louder, echoing in my mind. Leave us, leave us. I turned to my passengers, the fear evident in their eyes. Get to safety, I shouted, my voice urgent. But as I turned to face the shadows, I felt a weight settle over me, a suffocating darkness that threatened to pull me under. "You can't escape," the whispers echoed, their voices wrapping around me like chains. In that moment, I understood the true horror of the swamp. It was not merely a place but a living entity, a reflection of our fears and memories. I had stirred something that could never be put to rest. Years later, the stories of the swamp became legend, whispered in hushed tones around campfires. The woman who had disappeared became a ghost story, a cautionary tale for those who dared to venture too close to the edge of the unknown. I had long since stopped giving tours, the weight of the swamp too heavy to bear. The darkness still lingered, a haunting reminder of the night we had brushed against something ancient and powerful. As I sat on the porch of my home, the air thick with humidity, I could hear the whispers of the swamp calling to me, a siren's song that echoed in the distance. "You can't escape." I knew the truth. The swamp would always remember, and the darkness would never truly let me go.